Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something you might not expect. Humility. But not like the shy wallflower kind of humility. This is more about the kind of humility that, well, according to Scott Allen Richards, leads to a seriously fulfilling life.
Interesting.
We're diving into his book, The Path to a Lifestyle of Humility.
Okay.
And getting ready to unpack why, in a world that's like obsessed with showing off, the Bible is all about humility as the key to, well, wisdom and real contentment.
I mean, that is kind of a fascinating paradox, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, we're told to shout our achievements, from the rooftops, be proud.
Right?
But then this book comes along and says, hold on, real strength comes from recognizing, our limits and a power greater than ourselves.
I have to admit, when I first heard we were going to be talking about humility, I thought, okay, meek, quiet, maybe even a bit of a weakness.
Yeah.
But this book throws that idea right out the window, doesn't it?
It does.
It's suggesting humility is actually an inner strength.
Absolutely. Richards defines humility as, well, a heart and mind orientation, really. It's about recognizing that there's something bigger than us, at play. And that recognition, that can lead to greater inner strength and contentment, not less.
Such a shift from the me mentality we see all the time.
Everywhere, yes. And to illustrate this, the book dives into, well, some pretty captivating stories from the Bible.
Okay.
Think about Moses, for instance.
Okay, yeah.
He, led the Israelites out of Egypt, performed miracles, talked to God face to face.
Yeah.
But he's described as very humble, more than any man who was on the face of the earth.
I mean, wow, that's incredible. You'd think someone with those achievements, would have an ego the size, not like Mount Sinai.
Right.
So how does the book explain that?
Well, it points out that Moses' humility wasn't about, minimizing his accomplishments. It was about recognizing that his strength, his success, ultimately came from somewhere else. Something beyond himself, beyond his ego.
So it's not about denying your capabilities, but understanding that they exist within like a larger context.
Exactly.
That really changes things, doesn't it?
It really does. And this theme of attributing success to something bigger than oneself, well, it keeps popping up in the book. Another example is Mary, the mother of Jesus.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Imagine the weight on her shoulders, knowing she was going to give birth to, the Messiah.
I can't even imagine that kind of pressure.
Right. And yet her response was one of, well, just humble acceptance. Behold, the bondslave of the Lord, may it be done to me according to your word.
Makes you wonder, in our modern world, with our quest for control, are we missing out on a different kind of strength, the strength that comes from surrender?
That's a really insightful observation.
Yeah.
And it ties right into the book's exploration of, well, finding strength through recognizing a higher power. And speaking of, we can't talk about humility in the Bible without mentioning Jesus, right?
Yeah, of course not.
The ultimate example.
Right.
I mean, he was the Son of God.
Right.
Yet he lived a life of service, washing his disciples' feet. And ultimately sacrificing himself for humanity.
It feels like a paradox, almost.
It is. The book highlights the consistent thread in these figures,
Okay.
They achieved extraordinary things, but their focus remained outward, directed towards something much bigger than themselves.
Oh, like maybe the secret to true fulfillment isn't self-promotion, but aligning ourselves with something larger than our own desires.
That is a key takeaway Richards emphasizes throughout the book. But these are grand figures, right? Moses, Jesus, Mary.
Yeah.
I'm curious how this translates to daily life.
Exactly.
For someone like me. What does humility actually look like in practice? Not parting the Red Sea on the way to work,
That's exactly it. It's great to talk about, these huge figures from history, but what does walking humbly look like for us? Like in our daily routine?
Right. Well, that's where it gets really interesting. Richards argues that humility, well, it's not passive. It's about action. Chapter 4, humility in action, emphasizes service, empathy, forgiveness, and gratitude as the cornerstones of a humble life.
Okay.
It even talks about, well, the idea of humble leadership,
Okay.
where a leader prioritizes the well-being of others above all else.
So no sitting in a corner, being all self-effacing.
Right.
It's about active outward expression. Almost sounds counterintuitive.
It does.
Doesn't it?
It does. And that's what makes it so compelling. Richards actually uses a really powerful analogy to illustrate this.
Okay.
He says that, well, trying to be humble is like trying to blow out a candle in front of a mirror.
Okay.
The harder you blow, the more your reflection, well, blows back at you.
I love that. That's such a clear image of how, trying too hard to be humble can actually backfire. So if directly aiming for humility doesn't work, what's the alternative?
That's where the idea of service comes in. Richards argues that true humility emerges naturally. Yeah. When we shift our focus away from ourselves and onto the needs of others. It's about forgetting ourselves in the act of serving rather than seeking recognition for our good deeds.
And I think that's where a lot of people kind of stumble, right? They want to be seen as humble.
Yes.
But they also want credit for it.
Absolutely. The book directly addresses that. It talks about how pride can often, masquerade as humility.
Oh, yeah.
Leading us to, actions that are ultimately self-serving.
Tricky trap.
It is.
So how do we tell the difference between genuine humility and this disguised pride? What are some actual examples of how service, manifests as true humility?
Well, one example Richards uses is the concept of active listening and empathy. He argues that humility requires a willingness to, genuinely hear others, to understand their experiences, their perspectives, even when they differ from our own. It's about setting aside our own agendas, our egos, to make space for others to be heard.
That's huge, especially in today's world where everyone's just, shouting their own opinions, not really listening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The book highlights a powerful quote from the Apostle James.
Okay.
Everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. That really resonated with me.
Yeah.
It's about choosing to listen, with the intent to understand rather than to just respond or debate.
It's a conscious effort, isn't it?
It is.
To quiet that voice in your head that just wants to jump in and dominate the conversation.
It is.
But it sounds like the rewards are worth it.
They are. The book emphasizes that when we listen with humility, we build deeper connections, foster mutual respect, and create an environment where genuine understanding can flourish.
It's like when someone feels truly heard, it kind of disarms them and opens the door for real, authentic communication.
Absolutely.
So we've got service and listening. What other actionable aspects of humility does the book talk about?
Another key aspect is forgiveness and reconciliation. The book argues that, humility is the foundation for both.
Okay.
It's about choosing to let go of resentment and bitterness, extending grace and mercy, even when it's incredibly difficult.
I can already hear our listeners saying, easier said than done. Forgiveness, that can be so hard, especially when someone's really hurt you. How does the book address that?
Well, it dives into the idea that, holding on to grudges, it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Wow.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It only harms us.
That's a powerful image.
It is.
So it's more about self-preservation than being nice to the person who wronged us.
Exactly. What I found particularly interesting is how the book connects this back to our relationship with a higher power.
Okay.
Suggesting that, if we can't forgive others, how can we expect forgiveness ourselves? The book quotes Ephesians 4:32, where Paul says, "Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ also has forgiven you."
Wow, that really puts things into perspective. It's not just about being nice. It's about recognizing that, we've all messed up. We all need grace, and we're called to extend that same grace to others.
Exactly. And the book makes it clear that forgiveness isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process, a muscle we need to strengthen, a habit we need to cultivate.
So service, listening, forgiveness, these are all challenging but crucial expressions of humility.
Yeah.
Is there anything else the book talks about that we should keep in mind?
Well, there's one more that I found particularly fascinating: the link between gratitude, generosity, and humility.
Okay. I can see how those are connected. When you're truly grateful for what you have, it's natural to want to share, right?
Exactly. But the book goes even deeper, arguing that both gratitude and generosity stem from a place of humility. It challenges us to see, everything we have as a gift rather than something we've, earned or deserved.
So it's about shifting our mindset from I deserve this to I'm so blessed to have this and I want to use it to bless others.
Exactly.
That sounds like a recipe for contentment.
It is. Richards argues that generosity isn't just about, material things. It's about sharing our time, our talents, our energy, anything that can benefit others. It's about seeing ourselves as stewards, not owners.
I like that perspective. It's so freeing to let go of the need to hoard and control, everything. But I'm wondering, does it only focus on individual actions? Or does it address leadership at all?
Oh, it definitely tackles leadership. Chapter 4 dives into humble leadership.
Okay.
And it's incredibly insightful.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are the main points when it comes to leading with humility?
The core idea is that effective leadership, well, it's rooted in humility. The book quotes Jesus actually teaching his disciples. He says, "Whoever wishes to become great among you shall be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave."
Wow. That's quite a flip from the traditional idea of a leader as someone who, commands and controls.
Exactly. Humble leaders, they prioritize the well-being of those they lead. Not their own ambitions. They lead by example, modeling integrity, compassion, selflessness.
Leading with a servant's heart. Powerful stuff.
It is.
It's about empowering others, not lording your authority over them.
Right. And the book gets really practical.
Okay.
Giving examples of how this plays out. It stresses actively listening to your team, valuing their input, giving credit where it's due. It also highlights the importance of, admitting your mistakes as a leader, being open to learning from others, even those you lead.
That takes courage, doesn't it?
It does.
To let go of the need to always be right.
Right.
To embrace vulnerability as a leader. It seems like a key theme in this whole book is that humility requires a willingness to be vulnerable.
You're absolutely right. And the book argues that vulnerability is not a weakness, but a strength. It builds trust and fosters a culture of collaboration and mutual respect.
So humble leadership isn't just about being like a nice boss. It's about creating a culture where everyone feels valued and empowered.
Precisely. It's about creating a win-win where everyone benefits and the team thrives. Which brings up a question many people might have.
Yeah.
Where's the payoff in all of this?
That's a great point. It's great to talk about the importance of humility, but in a world driven by results, what does the book say about the benefits of embracing this seemingly self-effacing virtue?
That's where chapter 5, the rewards of humility, comes in.
Okay.
And let me tell you, it's a real eye-opener.
Okay.
Get ready for some unexpected benefits. So you might think humility, leads to being overlooked or maybe even taken advantage of.
Right.
But get ready for some plot twists.
Yeah.
Because the book dives deep into the rewards, and they're not what you'd expect.
Okay. You've piqued my interest. Tell me, what are these unexpected rewards of humility?
Well, first and foremost, the book talks about favor.
Yeah.
In a spiritual sense, it draws on examples from the Bible where blessings just seem to, flow towards those who practice humility.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're acknowledging something greater than yourself, and seeking guidance from that higher power. It's like aligning yourself with a powerful force.
Exactly. The book quotes Proverbs 22.4, which says, "The reward for humility and fear of the Lord is riches and honor and life."
So it's not just about, spiritual or intangible rewards. Could there be tangible benefits as well?
Absolutely. But it goes beyond material success. The book also emphasizes the connection between humility and wisdom.
Interesting. I never really thought of those two as being linked. How does humility lead to wisdom?
Well, think about it. When you approach life with humility, you're more open to learning, to seeking guidance, admitting you don't have all the answers.
Yeah, that's true. Pride often closes us off to new information, different perspectives. Like
Yeah.
we think we already know everything.
Exactly.
So why bother learning anything new?
Right. The book quotes Proverbs 15.33, which says, "The fear of the Lord is the instruction for wisdom, and before honor comes humility." It's like humility creates this fertile ground,
Yeah.
for wisdom to take root.
So it's not that humble people are like inherently smarter,
Right.
but that their humility allows them to be better learners.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got favor, wisdom. What else does the book mention in terms of rewards?
Well, this one might surprise you.
Okay.
It talks about inner peace
Yeah.
and contentment.
Really?
Okay.
I would have thought that humility would make you more like self-critical and therefore less content.
Right.
Constantly acknowledging your shortcomings.
It seems counterintuitive, I know.
Yeah.
But the book argues that when you let go of the need to control everything, and surrender your ego, you actually experience a deeper sense of peace. You're not constantly striving or comparing yourself to others.
Yeah.
Or worrying about, what everyone thinks.
It's like taking a huge weight off your shoulders.
Exactly. The book quotes Philippians 4.7, which talks about experiencing the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension.
It almost sounds like letting go of the weight of the world.
Yeah.
And resting in something bigger than yourself.
That's a great way to put it. And that peace leads to contentment. Regardless of your external circumstances. It's not about achieving some, perfect state of being. It's finding that sense of peace within.
I'm starting to see how this all ties together. Humility isn't about diminishing yourself. It's about aligning yourself with something much greater.
It's a total paradigm shift.
It is.
And that alignment brings all sorts of unexpected benefits. There's one more the book mentions that might seem ironic at first. Exaltation. In due time.
Hold on, you're telling me that by humbling myself, I could actually be exalted? Isn't that a contradiction?
It sounds paradoxical.
Yeah.
But that's what the Bible teaches. Remember Luke 14.01. It says, "For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted."
It's like the world tells us to promote ourselves relentlessly,
Right.
to strive for recognition, be somebody. But the Bible seems to be suggesting that true greatness is found in the opposite approach. It's a very, very different definition of success.
It is. And the book emphasizes that this exaltation, well, it might not come in the form we expect. It might not be about, fame or fortune. It might be about inner growth, spiritual strength, a deeper connection with a higher power.
So it's about letting go of the ego's definition of success and embracing a different set of values.
Exactly. And trusting that those who genuinely walk the path of humility, they will be honored and recognized in their own time.
Okay, this is starting to make a lot more sense. But there's one big obstacle that I think a lot of people struggle with. Pride. It feels like such a universal human struggle, so ingrained in our nature. How can we possibly overcome such a deeply embedded part of ourselves?
That's where Chapter 6, Overcoming Pride, comes into play. It acknowledges this is a battle worth fighting, and thankfully it offers an arsenal of practical strategies.
Okay.
To help us do just that.
Okay, I'm ready to suit up for battle. What weapons does the book equip us with?
The first weapon is self-reflection and honest examination of our own hearts. So
getting real with ourselves about where pride is showing up in our lives, even in like subtle ways.
Exactly. The book encourages us to ask, for guidance in revealing any prideful attitudes or behaviors that might be holding us back. It's about being brutally honest with ourselves about our motives and desires.
I think that's where a lot of us, get stuck, right? It takes courage to face those shadow parts of ourselves that we'd rather, keep hidden.
It does. But the book emphasizes that this is a crucial step towards growth and transformation. It's like shining a light on those dark corners so we can start to clean them up.
Okay, self-reflection is key. What else does the book recommend?
Well, another powerful weapon is seeking feedback from others. and holding ourselves accountable.
So letting trusted people in our lives speak truth to us, even when it's hard to hear.
Exactly. It's about surrounding ourselves with people who will challenge us, encourage us, help us stay on the path of humility. We need people who can see our blind spots and lovingly point them out to us.
That makes sense. It's easy to get caught up in our own heads and justify our own actions. Having that outside perspective is be so valuable.
It can.
What kind of people should we be seeking out for this kind of feedback?
Well, the book stresses the importance of choosing people who will be both honest and compassionate. We need people who will speak the truth in love, not those who will tear us down or judge us harshly. It's about finding those who genuinely want to see us, grow and become the best versions of ourselves.
Okay, so self-reflection and accountability. What other tools do we have to combat pride?
Well, Richards emphasizes the power of cultivating gratitude and generosity. The idea is that by focusing on what we have rather than what we lack, we shift our perspective away from entitlement and towards appreciation.
That makes sense. It's easy to get caught up in comparing ourselves to others, feeling like we're not enough. But when we focus on the good things in our lives, it's harder to be consumed by pride.
Exactly. The book encourages us to practice gratitude daily, to acknowledge that everything we have is a gift. It reminds us that our worth comes from something much deeper than our accomplishments or possessions.
It's about shifting our focus from what we've achieved to what we've been given. That's a powerful reminder.
It is. And then there's generosity. The book argues that when we're truly grateful, well, it naturally overflows into a desire to give back to others. It's about using our resources, whether they be time, talents, or material possessions, to make a positive impact on the world around us.
So generosity isn't just about, giving money to charity. It's about a heart posture of wanting to share what we have with others.
Exactly. And it's not about, seeking recognition for our generosity, but rather doing it out of a genuine desire to serve others.
This is also inspiring, but it's also a lot to digest. What practical steps can we take to actually integrate these ideas into our daily lives? I mean, it's great to talk about these things, but how do we make them a reality?
Well, that's where Chapter 7, Cultivating Humility in Daily Life, comes in.
Okay.
This is where the rubber meets the road.
Okay.
It's full of practical strategies and spiritual disciplines designed to help us, cultivate humility in our everyday experiences.
Okay, I'm ready to get practical. What are some of the key takeaways from this chapter?
The book encourages us to start by making gratitude a daily practice. It sounds simple, but it can be profoundly transformative.
Okay, how do we actually do that? How do we make gratitude a habit? Rather than just a fleeting feeling.
Well, the book suggests keeping a gratitude journal, taking a few moments each day to reflect on the things we're thankful for. It could be something as basic as a warm bed, a sunny day, a kind word from a friend.
So it's about intentionally shifting our focus from what we lack to what we have. Training our minds to see the good, even in the midst of challenges.
Exactly. And it's not just about, writing things down. It's about actively expressing our gratitude to those around us, saying thank you more often.
Yeah.
Acknowledging the good that others do for us, letting them know how much we appreciate them.
Those are great tips. I'm gonna start incorporating those into my routine. What else does the book recommend?
Well, another powerful practice is embracing vulnerability. Okay. This one can be tough for a lot of people, but it's essential for cultivating humility.
I'll admit, vulnerability is not my strong suit. I tend to be pretty guarded, and I don't like showing weakness. Yeah. How does the book address that fear?
Well, it acknowledges that vulnerability can be scary, but it argues that when we allow ourselves to be open and honest about our struggles, it creates space for genuine connection and growth.
So it's about letting go of the need to be perfect, to have it all together. But what if people judge us or reject us, for our imperfections?
That's a valid concern.
Yeah.
But the book reminds us that true friends and our loved ones will love and accept us, flaws and all. And it's often through our vulnerabilities that we connect with others on a deeper level.
It's about finding those safe spaces where we can be authentic without fear of judgment.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
It does. And it's not just about, being vulnerable with others. It's also about being vulnerable with a higher power. The book emphasizes the importance of pouring out our hearts, confessing our weaknesses and relying on something greater than ourselves for strength and guidance.
I've never thought about it that way, but it makes sense. If we believe in a loving and merciful, higher power,
right?
Why would we try to hide our imperfections?
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we're all works in progress.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Okay. I'm starting to see the value in embracing vulnerability. What other practices does the book recommend for cultivating humility?
Well, it goes back to a point we touched on earlier, seeking feedback and accountability.
Right. That's about letting trusted people in our lives, speak truth to us, even when it stings a bit.
Exactly. It's about inviting honest feedback, both positive and negative, and using it as an opportunity to grow.
It takes a lot of humility to admit that we don't have it all figured out, and to be open to correction, doesn't it?
It does, but the book argues that this is essential for personal and spiritual development. It's about recognizing that we all have blind spots, and that we need others to help us see them. It's about having a growth mindset, a willingness to learn, and to be challenged.
And we need to choose our accountability partners wisely, right? We need people who will challenge us in a constructive way, not those who will tear us down.
You're absolutely right. It's about surrounding ourselves with people who will speak the truth in love and who genuinely want to see us succeed.
Okay, so gratitude, vulnerability, feedback. What else does the book recommend for cultivating humility in our daily lives?
Well, it brings us back to a core principle we discussed earlier, serving others selflessly. Ah,
yes. The heart of humility in action. We talked about the concept of service in general, but are there specific practices that the book recommends?
Well, the book emphasizes the importance of discovering our unique gifts and talents and using them to serve others. It's about finding that sweet spot where our passions and abilities intersect with the needs of the world.
That makes so much sense. When we're serving in a way that aligns with our passions.
Right.
It doesn't feel like a chore. It feels like a joy.
Exactly. And the book encourages us to be creative, in finding ways to serve. It could be through volunteering, mentoring, using our professional skills to help a nonprofit, or simply offering a listening ear to a friend who's going through a tough time.
It's about making service a lifestyle, not just something we do, once in a while to check a box.
Precisely. It's about looking for those everyday opportunities to serve others.
Yeah.
Whether it's at home, at work, or in our communities.
Okay. Serving others, big one. What else does the book suggest for cultivating humility?
Well, it goes back to something we've touched on a few times: active listening. It's so important that it deserves to be emphasized again and again.
Okay, remind me what active listening, really entails. It's more than just hearing words, isn't it?
It is. It's about truly focusing on the person speaking, giving them our undivided attention, and seeking to understand their perspective without judgment or interruption.
So it's about putting aside our own thoughts and agendas and being fully present with the other person.
Exactly. It's about listening to understand, not to not to respond.
That's a tough one. I know I'm often guilty of formulating my response while the other person is still talking.
I think we all do that sometimes.
Yeah.
But the book emphasizes that active listening is a skill we can develop with practice. It's about being intentional, about quieting that inner voice and truly focusing on the person in front of us.
So it's about, asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what we've heard, making sure we truly understand the other person's perspective.
Exactly. And that type of listening, well, it fosters deeper connections, builds trust, and creates an environment where open and honest communication can thrive.
Okay. Active listening is definitely a practice I want to work on. What else does the book recommend?
Well, another important practice is responding with grace and forgiveness.
Yeah.
Even when it's incredibly difficult.
Okay, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier with letting go of resentment and bitterness.
Right.
But how do we actually respond with grace when someone has really hurt us? It feels almost impossible sometimes.
The book reminds us that we have all received grace and forgiveness. And that we are called to extend that same grace and forgiveness to others.
It's about remembering that we're not perfect, that we all make mistakes, and that we're all in need of grace.
Exactly. And it's about making the conscious choice to forgive, even when it's hard, because holding on to anger and resentment, it only hurts us in the long run. It doesn't punish the other person. It poisons us.
But what about when someone has deeply wounded us? Is forgiveness truly possible in those situations?
That's a tough question. And the book acknowledges that forgiveness can be a long and arduous process, especially in cases of deep hurt. But it ultimately argues that forgiveness is for our benefit. It frees us from the bondage of bitterness and allows us to move forward in healing.
So it's not about condoning the other person's actions. It's about releasing ourselves from the negative emotions that are keeping us captive.
Exactly, and it's about trusting that a higher power is ultimately just and will handle the situation in their own way and time.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about letting go of the need to control the situation and surrendering to something bigger than ourselves. It's about recognizing that true justice often goes beyond our limited human understanding.
Precisely. And the book emphasizes that forgiveness is not a one-time event. It's an ongoing practice. We might need to forgive the same person, multiple times for the same offense as our own wounds and triggers resurface.
It's about choosing forgiveness over and over again until our hearts are truly free from bitterness and resentment.
Exactly. And that type of forgiveness, well, it's a powerful expression of humility. It's about recognizing our own need for grace and extending that same grace to others.
This has been so enlightening.
It has.
But I have a question about maintaining humility over time. It seems like such a constant battle against our egos.
It is.
How do we sustain, this way of living in the long run?
That's an excellent question. The book acknowledges that humility is not a destination. It's a journey. It requires constant effort and attention. It actually dedicates a whole section to maintaining humility. Recognizing that it's an ongoing process.
Okay, I'm all ears. What are some practical tips for staying humble? Day in and day out.
Well, first and foremost, the book emphasizes ongoing self-reflection and intentionality. It's about constantly checking our motives, examining our hearts, making sure we're not slipping back into old patterns of pride and egotism.
So it's like having a daily humility check-in with ourselves,
No.
asking ourselves, am I seeking attention? Am I trying to control this situation? Am I being judgmental or self-righteous? Am I putting my own needs before others?
Exactly. It's about being honest with ourselves about where we're at and making adjustments as needed. It's a lifelong process of growth and refinement.
That makes sense. It's easy to get, caught up in the busyness of life and to lose sight of our commitment to humility. We need those regular reminders to stay on track.
Absolutely. And the book encourages us to be proactive, and seeking out opportunities to practice humility.
Well, what are some examples of how we can do that?
Well, it can be something as simple as choosing to serve,
Yeah.
instead of being served. Asking for help when we need it, instead of trying to do everything ourselves, or admitting our mistakes instead of trying to cover them up. It's about looking for those everyday moments where we can choose humility over pride, even in small ways.
It's about making humility a habit, a way of life, not just a theoretical concept that we admire from afar.
You got it. But the book also acknowledges that we're going to mess up sometimes. We're going to give into pride and ego. We're human after all.
That's reassuring. It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. The book emphasizes the importance of extending grace to ourselves and others. When we stumble, it reminds us that we're all on this journey together, and we all need support and encouragement along the way.
That's a beautiful reminder. It's about offering ourselves and others, compassion when we fall short, rather than judgment or condemnation.
Precisely. And that compassion, well, it's a key element of humility.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about, individual practices. But what about humility in the context of leadership? We discussed the concept of humble leadership earlier.
Right.
But how do we actually embody those principles on a daily basis, especially when leading others, can sometimes tempt us to fall back into old patterns of pride and self-importance.
That's such an important question. Leading with humility can be challenging, especially in a world that often equates leadership with power and authority.
Right. It can be tempting to fall into the trap of thinking that we need to have all the answers, and to project an image of strength and infallibility. But the book reminds us that true leadership is not about wielding power, but about serving others.
Exactly. It's about remembering that our role as leaders is to empower those we lead, to help them grow and reach their full potential.
So it's about shifting our focus from being the hero to being the guide.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It is a great analogy. It's about creating a space where everyone, feels valued and heard, where they can contribute their unique talents and perspectives.
It's about fostering like a culture of collaboration and mutual respect, where mistakes are seen as opportunities for learning and growth.
Absolutely. And it all starts with modeling humility.
Yeah.
In our own words and actions. If we want our team to embrace humility, we need to show them what it looks like in practice.
It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. And it's about being willing to admit our own mistakes, to ask for help when we need it, and to give credit to others when it's due.
It's about creating a culture where vulnerability is seen as a strength, not a weakness.
You got it. And when we lead with humility, it creates, like a ripple effect throughout the entire organization.
It's about fostering a culture where everyone feels empowered to contribute their best work, knowing that they're valued and respected.
Precisely. And that type of environment, it leads to greater innovation, creativity, and overall success.
This has been so eye-opening. It's clear that humility is not just a personal virtue. It's a powerful leadership principle that can transform, entire organizations and communities.
I couldn't agree more. And the book does a fantastic job of providing providing practical strategies for how to embody humility in all areas of life, from our personal relationships to our professional endeavors.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring, the nature of humility, the challenges of overcoming pride, and the surprising rewards that come from embracing this often misunderstood virtue. But before we wrap up, I always like to end with a thought-provoking question, something for our listeners to ponder as they go about their day. What's one question that has been like swirling in your mind as we've delved into this topic?
That's a great idea. What really struck me is how often we try to manufacture humility. We want to, appear humble, be seen as humble, but we're still operating from a place of ego.
It's like we're trying to control the perception of our humility, which is in itself a form of pride.
Exactly. It's a bit of a paradox. So the question that keeps coming back to me is this: Can we ever truly be humble if we're consciously trying to be humble?
Ooh, that's a good one. It's like the paradox of self-awareness. The more we try to grasp it, the more elusive it becomes.
Right. It makes me wonder if true humility is something that emerges naturally when we surrender our egos and align ourselves with something larger than ourselves.
So it's not about striving for humility, but about surrendering to something greater than ourselves.
That's what I'm starting to think. The more we focus on ourselves, the less humble we become. But when we shift our focus to something beyond ourselves, humility seems to flow naturally from that posture of surrender.
That's a beautiful thought, and it's a great challenge for all of us to ponder.
Absolutely, it's a reminder that humility is not a destination. It's a journey, an ongoing process of letting go, and allowing something greater than ourselves to work in us and through us.
This has been such a rich and rewarding deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of humility.
Me too. It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
And to our listeners, we want to hear from you. What resonated with you most from this deep dive? What were your thoughts on that final question about the paradox of trying to be humble? Share your insights on our social media channels. Yeah. We'd love to continue the conversation.
Yes, definitely. We're all on this journey together, and we can learn so much from each other's experiences.
Well, that's about it for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, keep seeking humility, keep serving others, and keep diving deep.
See you next time.